Perfect.
Recording? Recording?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, we can go ahead and just hop right into it. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
Is Joanne coming?
I don't know. I haven't seen her post in the chat. Can y'all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Awesome. All right.
Yes.
So I won't be able to see y'all. So if you guys could, speak, that would be great instead of typing in the chat. Or if people are typing in the chat, if you guys could let me know. Oh, there's Jalon. Awesome. Just in time. All right. Okay, so well, to introduce myself, my name is Nick, and then our co-facilitator this week is going to be Marie. And the topic of this week is going to be coping skills and life skills. All right, so just to get started, we're going to go ahead and do a check-in. So in relation to addiction and recovery, I want you guys to think about your behavioral, cognitive, and emotional facets. Like, so this week, behaviorally, did you do anything differently this week? Cognitively, did you think about anything differently this week? And emotionally, did you feel anything differently this week?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody want to expand?
Yes.
And if so, how so?
Behaviorally, I started going to sleep a little earlier than midnight.
Okay. Have you noticed maybe a difference in how you're feeling based off of how you're adjusting your sleep schedule?
Yes, I feel a little less irritable.
Okay. That's good. Anybody else?
I think cognitively, because I've continued to do the urge surfing, which like gives me more time to kind of think differently. You get that amount of time to kind of like distract yourself and have different thoughts that aren't attached to like an addictive behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were urge surfing, what were maybe some of the things that you did behaviorally that helped with your cognitive thinking?
I think I went along with how Tia was saying, like I set an alarm for about, I try to do about 3 minutes. I'm trying to like up the minute intake like as I go along. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll try 3 minutes, to sit through how I'm feeling without making a decision or trying to come to some conclusion at that time.
Good. Right on. Anyone else? Perhaps anybody emotionally?
Mine are different. So like I gave up stuff for 40 days because of Lent, and now that Easter has passed, I'm more irritable now that I no longer am fasting, and I'm more easily distracted and I'm more overwhelmed.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I should fast.
Brett, did you say something?
I said maybe I should fast then.
Yeah.
I'm still anxious.
Anxious?
Yeah, I'm using the strategies, but I'm still anxious even after using the strategies.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, and hopefully, like, because this week we're talking about coping skills and life skills, hopefully you'll be able to learn something from this presentation that maybe you can add into those strategies that you've been using, and we can lower that anxiety for you. And then the point of this is what I really wanted you guys to see was that, like, for Marie, she was doing something differently with herself, like behavioral. So she was on Lent for 40 days, and then now she's feeling emotionally different. You know, she's more irritable. And so the whole point of this is just to show you guys that whether we're doing something differently, thinking or feeling something differently, they kind of intertwine and work together. So it's completely normal to notice maybe differences, how we might be feeling based off of what we're doing. So going forward throughout this presentation, I just want you guys to keep that in mind for when we're discussing, you know, behavioral coping skills, cognitive, emotional, or cognitive coping skills and emotional coping skills. Even though they might be listed under one of those three things, they can also help in a different facet. So we'll go ahead and move forward. All right, so the focus for this week, we have three main objectives. So the first one is to build practical coping skills to manage your stress, cravings, and urges. The second objective is to develop life skills that support independence and recovery. And then the third objective for this week is to connect skill use to positive reinforcement. So once again, this is a contingency management group, and so connecting how we use our skills with positive reinforcement is really what we're going to try and drive home, because that's what this whole group model and style is based off of. So you guys, I'm sure going forward throughout the presentation, will pick up on that. So the importance of skills. So there's four main reasons that we're teaching you this. It's to reduce your risk of relapse, improve your emotional regulation, increase confidence and independence, and reinforce positive behaviors. Any questions? Comments, concerns?
No.
Okay. Okay, so first, what are coping skills? So our coping skills are strategies used to manage things like stress, our emotions, cravings, urges. So things like anxiety, for instance, like Erica, when you brought up your anxiety earlier, you know, hopefully we'll be able to discuss some sort of coping skill that can help you manage that. It's not going to completely erase these sort of things, but it is going to help, hopefully, you guys you know, work through these things to lower the side effects of, you know, maybe your stress or your anxiety, depression, even negative emotions and cravings and your urges. So the whole point of coping skills is to help you guys transition from a behavior of reacting to responding. So reacting would basically be without thinking, just immediately and instinctually, you know, like behaving a certain way to a certain negative stimulus, whereas responding is stopping, reflecting, assessing, and working through something that's negative in a more positive manner. So the three different types of coping skills, once again, it's emotional, cognitive, and behavioral. So some emotional coping skills would be deep breathing or other breathing exercises. Then you have grounding, like we spoke about last week. So grounding would be, you know, thinking about something that you can taste, feel, see, hear, smell. All of these things are basically to keep you present and in the moment rather than becoming disassociated with you know, the negative stimulus and becoming overwhelmed. So cognitive coping skills would be things like challenging your negative thoughts and reframing. So shifting your perspective from one that's negative and possibly hurtful towards yourself into reevaluating and looking at the negative from a different perspective and possibly noticing strengths that you have and moving forward with that. So some behavioral coping skills would be things like we've talked about before, like urge surfing and seeking support from others. Any questions? I know I'm talking fast.
No questions. Over here.
All right, awesome. All right. So using our coping skills, so urge surfing, right? So we've talked about this before. You acknowledge that cravings rise and fall like waves. So something that's important is that you do not have to act on urges. So you're not obligated to give into these urges. And I think that's really important for us to remember is just because we might feel something negative, just because we might feel an urge or a craving, as long as we acknowledge those things, we can also acknowledge the fact that we don't have to give into those things. So remembering our strengths and just remembering that we have a choice, right? There is always a choice, and that's what's most important. So steps with urge surfing would be noticing the urge, observing the urge objectively without judgment. So having no sort of negative or even positive feelings towards it, just looking at it neutrally, and then occupying yourself. And then once you have or occupied yourself for a certain amount of time, usually 15 to 30 minutes is what we tend to encourage for you guys to do. After that time, you go ahead and revisit and reassess the urge that you were feeling and see how you are feeling towards that urge after that time. Hopefully, that urge has either completely gone away or it has dissipated to a certain amount to where you feel a lot stronger towards that urge. Another coping skill would be such as the behavioral breathing techniques. For instance, this is the 4-4-6 breathing. So for 4 seconds, you'll inhale. For 4 seconds, you'll hold that breath. And then for 6 seconds, you'll exhale. And you're counting in your head. And then you want to use this type of behavioral coping skill during cravings, anxiety, or stress. So Erica, you could try this the next time you're having an anxiety attack or just feeling anxious. I want you to try maybe implementing some sort of breathing technique, and that'll be an individual homework assignment for you. Or any of you guys, if you're feeling anxious. Any questions? Of course. So we're going to keep going. So Tia, you mentioned your sleep. So this is, great for you to consider. So sleep hygiene is super important, right? Because poor sleep is going to increase your cravings. It's going to decrease your mood or mood swings, and then the risk of relapse is going to be increased because your sleep is important. If you're spending more time awake, then chances are you're spending more time thinking about your urges, whereas when you're asleep, you're healing, your brain is getting the rest it needs, and then you can feel refreshed. You're not depending on things such as stimulants or caffeine. So some sleep tips would be things like going to bed and waking up at the same time daily, avoiding your screen or screen time 30 to 60 minutes before bed, limiting caffeine late in the day, using your bed only for sleeps, no bed rotting. I know I'm guilty of it, but it's important that, we get up, we move around, we stay mobile. Don't become stagnant because that's usually when, these urges and cravings can come in. Also, using your bed for other reasons than sleeping can disrupt your sleep, and falling asleep will become more challenging. And then creating a calm bedtime routine, whether that's, lighting candles, lowering the lighting in your room, or putting on music, like soft music, or whatever it might be that kind of like calms you down rather than, increasing stimulus. That's kind of what we're encouraging here. And then another coping skill would be behavioral activation. So this is increasing positive, meaningful activities to improve your mood. So some examples would be things like going for a walk or calling a friend, attending a meeting, completing a small task, or engaging in a hobby. So the main idea for this is to basically just get up and do something, and then you'll feel better after. Don't think about doing it. Don't think about like the steps that it's going to take to go to the gym, or is it going to be crowded, is there going to be traffic? Don't think about the negatives, just get up and do it, and then once it's done, reassess and then check in with yourself to see how you feel. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would definitely help me. I think this is a great resource, and remembering these things to hold myself accountable as well. I think that'll really help me.
Yeah, and I mean, there's tons of other coping skills that we can use, and these are just a few of them. And so some of these might work more for some of you, and whereas others might not. The point is to just give it a try, just to see what is like plug these things in, see if they're going to work for you. If they don't, try something new. But the point is to have a plan, right? So we don't want to have a craving or an urge and not have a plan, right? So if we have these coping skills in mind, when we get hit with an urge, we can check in with ourselves and our coping skills, and we can go down the list, what is working, what isn't working. The things that aren't working, we can dismiss for another time, and the things that are working, we can pursue and then reinforce those things, and then hopefully reward ourselves by not giving in to those urges and then creating positive behavioral patterns, right? So now we're going to transition from coping skills to life skills. So the difference here is that life skills are needed for everyday functioning, right? So these are things that we're going to do day in and day out, not just when negative emotions are hitting us. These are things that are going to be more proactive and preventative. So they're going to support long-term stability and independence. And once again, they're used in everyday life to promote positive behaviors. So some examples would be things like time management, communication, problem solving, and financial responsibility. Okay, so life skills that are specific for things like recovery, what we're here for, so managing time and routines, healthy communication. So that means, finding people that can support you, explaining to them and other people how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and just letting them in rather than becoming closed off and becoming an island, right? Because we're not going to be able to fight against these urges, fight against our cravings by ourselves. If you have a support system, you're more likely to overcome these negative things, right? Setting boundaries. So there might be certain people that are negative influences on you. And like for me, I have an issue going out to the bar when I'm with certain people. I know that they're going to be negative influences. So I have to set a personal boundary with myself, right? To not go out to the Skylar with, Joe Schmo, because Joe Schmo is a negative influence. And then another life skill would be, like decision making, just reinforcing yourself with positive decision making, taking the time to make your decisions rather than quickly just coming up with a decision just for whether it's convenience or to people please, right? We don't want to be doing those things. We want to take our time, assess all of our choices, assess consequences, and then decide based off of pros and cons and what's going to make our life healthier, what's going to make us happier, and these things that are going to promote our long-term health. And then the last example would be things like stress management. Any questions, comments, concerns? The silence
I like
isn't.
that you're talking about both coping skills and then also just like general life skills. I hadn't thought about that. Because like the life skills feels more like long term, whereas the coping skills kind of feel a little bit more in the moment, and how to navigate it today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. From my perspective, right, these coping skills are more for like short-term use. They're kind of in the moment when things are happening right then and there. And then the life skills are more long-term geared. So eventually, the more life skills that you're implementing into your life, your everyday routine, the less coping skills you have to use because those life skills are setting you up for long-term success to where those short-term urges and cravings aren't going to happen or occur as often. So, eventually we're hoping that, coping skills will be used minimally, whereas, your life skills will be used day in and day out. Routines are being made, time management is being made, and, we're promoting positive patterns for ourselves. So that way, the urges aren't going to be as strong or as frequent. So using life skills. So time management, the importance here is you're reducing idle time, like I was talking about earlier. You don't want to be staying up late and waking up late because you're allowing for more idle time in your everyday life, which is going to cause you to, think about these urges, be triggered. And so some tips are to use a daily schedule and create routines, prioritize some tasks and build structure throughout your day, throughout your week or your month, or even just, like if you have to go hour to hour, then so be it. As long as you're creating structure in your life, you're avoiding idle time, and that is what is most dangerous with uh, throughout your day, throughout your time. Another life skill would be things like problem solving. I touched on this earlier. So you want to first identify a problem because that's the first step in solving a problem, right? Is knowing that there is one. The second step would be brainstorming your solutions, evaluating your options, and then ultimately you have to choose one. I know I have a problem with making decisions, and sometimes that can cause us to become frustrated or anxious. But ultimately, the point is knowing that once you do choose one, um, just follow through with it, right? And then if it doesn't work out, you can start over again with brainstorming solutions and then evaluating your options and then choosing from your options. It doesn't have to be an end all be all. If your option works, great. If it doesn't work, then just go back to the brainstorming. And then once something does work, reflect on the outcome, and then you can add that to your tool set in your problem solving. If things don't work, then throw it out. Communication. So there's three different types of communication. We have passive, aggressive, there's passive aggressive, and then there's assertive. So assertive is the main goal that we're trying to get you guys to, how we're trying to get you guys to communicate. And so the assertive formula would be I feel blank when blank because blank. And so those blanks are including things that so what you're feeling, when you're feeling, and why you're feeling. So, excuse me. When you can communicate what you're feeling, when you're feeling it, and why you're feeling it to people, it gives them uh, more information to work with. Whereas when you cut yourself off and you don't communicate, a lot of people tend to try to dig because they want to know if they're doing something wrong, even if they're not, right? People, they don't like the unknown. And I'm sure that you guys can attest to that. I certainly can. When something's wrong with a friend of mine and they're not communicating, I immediately start reflecting inward, like, what did I do wrong? What can I do to help? Whereas when I speak to somebody and they tell me exactly what they're feeling, when they started feeling it, how long they're feeling it, and why, I can work with that information, right? I can reassess with myself how I'm going to interact with this person. So it's important that we learn to communicate with others. It's important that we learn how to communicate with ourselves, right? So having an assertive formula with yourself so that way you can then communicate with other people and be assertive with them. That's super important. So I think that's kind of what I want you guys to do to begin with the assertive formula is start using it inwardly. So talk to yourself, why am I feeling this way? What am I feeling? And when did I start feeling it? And then learn to use that assertive formula with other people. And being assertive doesn't necessarily mean you're being negative or mean or, like you just don't want people's help. It's allowing people to understand you and therefore you're understanding yourself. So this is overall going to improve your relationships and your support systems. Any questions, comments? No. Okay. So connecting skills to CM rewards. So these skills are going to lead to behaviors that we can reinforce. So some examples would be using coping skills instead of substances, attending your appointments. You guys are all here. I just want to congratulate you on that. And thank you for being here, because now you're one step forward to completing your goals. You guys made it here. That's one goal. You guys are learning about these things that are going to help you ultimately complete your goals. So every skill practice is progress being made. And so I want you guys to remember that, right? Give yourself grace when you need to. Don't hold back from being graceful towards yourself. Whether it's a small step or a large step, it's a step in the right direction, and that's what matters. A step in the wrong direction, it's okay to have a step in the wrong direction, just as long as you're being aware of it, you acknowledge it, and you have a plan to counter that, right? So that's ultimately how I'm trying to connect these skills to the CM rewards. All right, so summary of this. So coping skills help to manage stress, cravings, and urges. Life skills support long-term success, and using coping skills and life skills in conjunction are essential for your guys' recovery. So practicing these things is going to equate to progress. All right, so that's going to end the presentation. These are just my references, and then Marie is going to lead us in an activity for the remainder of the meeting. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Yep, you bet.
Well, no, okay, yeah, I'll probably ask you to share your PowerPoint at some point. Thank you.
Okay.
That was really helpful.
You bet.
Do you all have any questions? Erica, Jalan, Tia, Brett, any questions, answers, insights before we get into the activity?
I just like that you spoke about time management, because it's kind of like one of the main things that I'm trying to harness right now is getting on a schedule, which is something I think I've never had that much structure in my life, even as a kid. So I kind of still am on that same trajectory of like, I just get it all done in the 24-hour period, you know? So, and I'm trying to navigate away from that and actually build a routine. And it's like very hard. And I have my own clients, and I'm like, you need to get a morning routine and a night routine. It's like, I don't even have these things in place, you know? So it's kind of like that reminder that I needed to kind of put those things in play.
Thank you, Jalan. And that leads exactly to where I wanted us to go today. So we're learning all these skills. We're learning urge surfing. We're learning activation. Today, Nick talked about routines, time management. And I wanted to focus on what happens when it's hard to use them, or when we thought this skill was going to work and then something happened. So today's focus of activity is to think about, I mean, I think, Jalan, if you're okay with it, I think that this is a really good example that we could kind of massage a little bit as a group, to be like, okay, so one, why did I think time management would work? And two, what is stopping me, or like what is blocking my ability to build a routine, either in the morning or at night? So yeah, so first I wanted to focus on what happens when it's hard to use them. Does that make sense for the group? Can anyone else resonate with wanting to build a routine, but maybe not having the follow through, or maybe other things happen? What are some things that get in the way of developing time management skills or a routine?
I think it's my schedule, not delegating, not knowing when to say no to certain people, places, and things, over promising. I think the list goes on for me.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And I heard someone else unmuting, but before we go to someone else, so if we were to refer to Nick's PowerPoint, and you don't have to pull it up, Nick, but what would that be? Was there any words that he used for those skills? Like, the word that came up for me was boundaries. I believe you brought up boundaries somewhere in there. I don't know if it was within the communication. So it sounds like boundaries, and then also you mentioned delegating tasks. So possibly basically, if we were to go back to Nick's slide, he said number one, identify the problem, and that's where we're going to be. So the problem that I'm hearing, and I want to hear from the rest of the group, is boundaries, and then also
Healthy
delegate.
communication.
Communication. What
I
kind of
think,
communication?
well, I think Nick talked about healthy communication in his PowerPoint. So I think that's also a part of it, is not having that really healthy communication line open with others. So I kind of fear saying no, or fear voicing my, I'm over exalting myself. So I think that comes into play when it comes to the delegating part, is not having that healthy communication with others, and sometimes not even the interpersonal communication that I should have with myself.
Okay. And what would healthy communication look like?
I think communicating my needs and feeling like the need would be met.
And what need is
Because I
that?
think okay, let's say like delegation with my peers at work, I'll kind of take on some of their tasks instead of saying, no, simply that I have my own things going on. I'll still want to help as much as I can, or I'll, bring my work home with me a lot of the times when I shouldn't, and I'm up all night because of those types of things. So
Okay. I want to pause here for a second and like imagine like 3 months from now that you've developed the skill to say no and the skill to not bring your work home. How does that land for you? How does that feel?
it makes me feel light, unburdened, free.
Okay. So if you were to feel light, unburdened, and free in 3 months, how are you feeling now without being able to say
Burdened,
no?
weighed down,
Mm-hmm.
stagnant.
Yeah. So what could be some steps? And this is a group conversation too. Obviously, Jolan and I could keep going here, but like what are some steps that you could take to unburden yourself? Even if it's just one small thing between today and next week when we meet.
I was thinking to just be able now to not take on any more tasks that I don't already have on my plate. So so I think that's the goal, the short-term goal I can say, is to not take on any more tasks than you already have. Learning my own threshold as well. I think knowing myself more and listening to myself when I know that I have enough going on, and not just wanting to people please, I think, or be a savior, like, yeah.
Yeah, I like how right then you were just like free thinking and you dropped a lot of like really good gold in there. So you brought in the savior instinct, like you want to be there for people and help them out. You also mentioned that like you don't want to take on any more tasks, but yet you still do so. And that there's like more people pleasing in there, and how you could work with that. So let's say we're identifying the problem and it's not just boundaries, it's also your need to please possibly, like you don't want to let others down, or maybe you feel as though other people rely on you more than you rely on them. Is that right? Or I see you were in the lobby and now you're not in the lobby, but you've been here all along.
Yes. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I think that's correct, Marie, where you were going with that.
Okay, so if we
Because
were,
I think, yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I want to listen to
Go ahead.
you.
No, I was just gonna reiterate what you were saying. Basically, it's a build up to me, like I said, it happens to me in phases. So it's like 1 minute I'm all on board with, I can say no, I can do it. And then it's like in the moment, it's like in the moment, something switches in my head. and I'm like, okay, I can do it. It's just this one time, and that one time leads to the next time, and then the next time, because I'm always able to practice it until the moment, and then it's like, okay, I don't want to let anyone down. But I also feel like people can't deliver on that same promise, so I'm not able to properly delegate without feeling like my hands have to be in everything, or I have to know everything that's going on, or it won't go the way I want it to. And I think sometimes I build up a resentment for others because they can trust me to do it, and I can't trust them in that same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, this is super rich. So like the other piece I'm listening to is that it's control as well. It's not just
Yeah.
saving others, it's not just boundaries, it's also control. But then I also wonder, and I kind of wanted to push back a little bit if it's okay, when you mentioned that you have it in your mind that you're going to say no, and then someone asks you something, you're like, I'm going to say no, but you know what? I can do it. And so you do it. What would happen, or like if you were saying, I can do it, but I don't want to, or I'm not going to, like finish that sentence because we know you
Yeah.
can do a lot. Like everyone in this group can do a lot. But what if that's not the point? It's not whether you can or can't, it's just how you're feeling. And in this whole group as a whole, we're creating a life that's a little bit more sustainable and less stressful and overwhelming, that's more likely to trigger us to use, if that makes sense. How does that land?
Yeah, I think that sounds ideal to me, that's where I want to be. That's the
Mhm.
space that I would like to be in, actually.
Okay, so let's say that we all are going to, as a group, we're all wanting to be in that place. Tia, Erica, or Brett, like, are there any solutions or any ideas that you can think of for someone, maybe even yourself, to create boundaries or to let go of the need to control, et cetera, et cetera?
So I'm learning that I'm a control freak because I feel like I can do it better, you know? So, like, for example, when it comes to like work and planning something or executing something, I noticed that like I'm like, I really don't want them to do it because I'm gonna do it a lot better. And so that's one of my things. And I can relate to Jelana as well, when she's saying like in her example, when she's like, I want to say no, but then when it comes down to it, she doesn't. Is that more, well, Jelana, I'm just asking, is that more of the same thing where it's like, not, I wouldn't say control freak, but where you want to take control because you know that you're more capable of getting that done, whatever that may be?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing that I will get it done, and I know what I'm going to do. Like when anything comes up, I know what I'm going to do and the extent I will go to get something accomplished or completed or whatever, the goal needs to be. But I don't have that confidence in others. And it's not that I don't think they're smart or I don't think they're capable, fully, capable. I just don't have that trust within me. It's not people that would be projecting for me to say that to me. So I
Yeah.
think it's like within me, I haven't built or learned how to just trust. Simply just trust. So it takes a lot for me to relinquish that control.
Yeah, I can definitely.
Trust. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I can understand that because I guess it's in relation to like delegating. I can understand that because you're kind of nervous about that. Like, okay, I know I can delegate this, but I don't know if I want to because I don't know if the work is going to look as well as, like look good
Yeah.
compared to how, because I'm saying that I think I'm relating because I think that's how I became like more wanting to be in control of things. Because I wouldn't say it's like I don't trust my peers or my colleagues. It's more so I know that I'm going to give it 100%, and not saying that they won't, but I know for sure I will. And so I'm learning to delegate and step back, delegate and take a step back, and just mind my business.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm learning.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for me, a huge part of it is, like I said, it's not that I don't have this, like, because you need this surface level of trust with people to get things done half the time. And I'm over analytical. So what is a small piece of trust to someone feels like, a boulder to me. People say take it with a grain of salt, and it's like a heavy rock for me because I that's how I take things. So again, it's just me unlearning some things, unpacking some things that, have made me feel this way.
Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds like what I'm hearing, and I could be hearing it wrong, is a lot of self-reliance and willpower. But I wonder within that self-reliance and willpower, that's phenomenal and amazing because both of you are getting your stuff done. I wonder if there's anywhere else that you draw your strength from, other than yourself. Because it sounds like you don't necessarily want to trust others to do it. Is there any other source of strength or trust that you have outside of people and yourself?
To me, my only source of trust is, God.
Exactly.
That's the only real trust that I have. Is the only trust that I'm able to harness, really.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times it's just me and God here, where I feel like, okay, well, this is the safety, like where I'm safe to have that vulnerability of, maybe just like not knowing how to do something or not wanting to do something or not
Mm-hmm.
wanting to have to know something. And I feel like that's kind of the opposite of where I am right now, where I feel like I have to know everything so that I'm able to fix it if it needs fixing, or I know where it got messed up so I can be involved. But then it's like I'm involved in everything. Like how do
Mm-hmm.
I undo being involved in every single thing?
It made
Yeah.
that just made me think about something about the trust part. And I think some of the things could be like I'm just thinking, childhood.
Yeah.
For me, I'm thinking about more so college, undergrad, when we were younger and we might have a project or something like that and it not get done, you know? So it's like I gotten older and start going into the real world and workforce, that's I never thought about it till now. And that's where that control starts. It's
Yeah.
kind of like from something that started at younger years.
I can agree with that. Well, I think it goes even back further into my childhood where kind of self-reliance kind of pivots into like hyper independence where everything has to be done by you.
Mm,
Then you resent other people for not helping you, but
mm,
you present as if you don't need help all the time.
mm,
I can relate to that, definitely. Especially like what I'm learning my job right now is I have two people that I have to kind of manage and train and delegate things to. And to me, um, it can be a little control thing, but also like mentally, I think I get a little anxious because I'm like, well, the amount of time it's going to take me to train them. And then if they don't get it right or they do it wrong, then I'm going to have to redo it. So I might as well just do it on my own because now we're going to be doubling or doing double the work, And so I definitely think that goes into one, the self-reliance of being like hyper independent and just having a higher capacity. Like I feel like one, God has blessed me with a higher capacity, but also because of life, I've had a higher capacity. And so I'm like, well, I can do all of this stuff. Like they may not be able to. So like just give me, the task, but being able to delegate because you do have this help. So I know Marie, you asked like what something we can do to kind of help take the weight off our shoulder. And I think even delegating little things, little tasks, something that you feel like will be very simple, just delegating that's one thing off of your plate, and then building the trust or learning to trust them, but also properly passing it off or properly delegating it to where like they'd be able to understand what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and thank you for bringing it back, Tia. And in the process of bringing it back, you also mentioned God. So I just wanted to let you all know that in this group, like if that comes up, I'm more than happy to chat about it. So basically, it's not just practical skills, cognitive, emotional, and what was the other one? Behavioral. There's also spiritual coping skills. There's also like a deep trust in God and deep self-reliance. And there's ways to ground because often in embodiment practices like anxiety or control or self-reliance, all of that's upward moving and fast moving up here to the point where it's like I got to do everything, and there's got to be something to balance it out that grounds you. For some of us it'll be cognitive, for others it's emotional, but both of you have brought up God. So if you're open to sharing what, even Jalan, I wanted to mention that when you brought up God, you went like you're like, well, God, I just and you slowed down your speech and you even sat back more. So that even gave you a little bit of weightiness of like less up here talking about delegation
Yeah.
and so even just talking about God, it brought you back a little bit. So I don't know how that lands or if that brings up any ideas for us in regards to spiritual grounding as well as a skill.
Yeah, I agree. I think like I said, it's a safe space for me. And for me, a lot of my inability to delegate comes with I think a more fear of vulnerability, not really knowing how to communicate or express things that may be perceived as negative or would maybe make someone feel negative about me if I can't do something or don't want to do something. And me not knowing how to say that without feeling terrible about myself. So I think a lot of it stems from there. But I think with God, I invite God into whatever I'm thinking, whatever I want to say, however I'm feeling. And I don't really have that same type of communication line open in the physical
Mm.
with people.
This makes total sense. Thank you. So it's just like there's much more intimacy and trust with God. That's
Right.
it. So it's like it's personal God. Nick, do you still have that slide available with the communication? It was kind of like an equation for ways of communicating. I wonder if we could end with getting really, really practical because, Jalan, you mentioned that you wanted to say things, but you want to express things, but they might come off as negative. And I wonder if we can do something as straightforward as like, let's play with something that you may want to say that may land wrong. And we as a group can kind of massage it out a little bit and see how that feels or how that lands to say it out loud. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So, can you think of anything that you would like to say or express that you're concerned may come off as negative?
Um, I would like to say maybe as far as my family, um, like I handle this problem a lot, so I don't think that I should be the one handling it this time.
Okay, so is that how you would say it and you think it comes off as negative?
No, that's me cleaning it up a little bit. That's
Do you
me
want to
cleaning
say
it
it
up.
not cleaned up or
I
are
mean,
you good with that?
um, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna try to leave it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna leave it there.
okay, Tia, Erica, or Brett, do you all have an idea of how to say I feel like you do, like you all should handle it? Or is there a way that you
Maybe
all
like
would
I
say
feel
it?
like I do everything. How about that?
I
Yeah,
do everything, yeah.
I would say I feel overwhelmed when I have to pick up more than I can bear in certain instances because sometimes I feel like um, I do a lot of things around the house or I do a lot of things. Um, you said just with your family
Family, work, both.
work. Yeah, so I feel overwhelmed when I feel like I have to pick up the slack because tasks aren't getting done properly. Um, that can be a work conversation because then you're just pointing it to I feel rather than being like you guys suck and now I have to do all this work.
Yeah.
Erica or Brett, do you all have, and then Nick, you're gonna be the last one, so I hope you have the perfect answer.
I know for me, I don't let it really affect me outside of the home because I'll just make sure that I make my suggestion about something I want to control and then I'll let it go, you know? So it's not like in my head, but at least I let it be known. So if it goes to shit, then at least I put it out there.
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
put it out there?
Like I'll let them know, well, or like, you know what I mean? Like my alternate suggestion
So in Jalan's case, what would that sound like? How would you say it?
about not overdoing it.
Yeah, like how would you deal with that situation verbally?
I don't know.
To Erica and Nick or anyone?
I like I said, my favorite. Well, my favorite. I'm learning to practice the word no. Like that's what that used to be my least favorite word. Now it's more of a favorite word, and it's not just with colleagues; it's with family, friends. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, so everyone relies on me. They think I'm a bank or something. I don't know what they think, but I'm a source. It seems like so. I would say I feel overwhelmed when you rely solely on me because there are other people in the family that could help. And I'm saying that because I'm the oldest of my siblings. So it's like the first thought they have is call Erica. And I'm significantly older than my siblings. So
Okay. Um,
some
I
no, like that's my 2026 word. No.
mm-hmm. You still got 8 more months of that. But in regards to getting stuff done around the house that you would like other people to do, but instead of you always having to do it, how would you navigate that
Um,
in this situation?
so just delegating, like what I was saying earlier, just delegating the task and taking a step back.
Is that also what you were saying, Brett, basically? Like you would just say it? Or
It's
what were you okay.
just kind of get it out there and just so it's not in my head and I guess say what I need to without doing what I want to.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wonder, go ahead.
No, just be straightforward, you know?
I wonder also about the time management skill. Like, if in the sense of like when you start feeling it brewing, it's oh that can you leave it on the I feel? But basically I was gonna say like if you know that this is gonna be a stressful week, it's like I feel like I'm gonna be overwhelmed if I don't go ahead and tell you all that like I really need X, Y, and Z to happen. Can you all take care of it in the next few days or something? So like telling them way in advance if you can see it coming, in such a way that like I'd really like this done by Friday. And
Okay.
that's it. So sometimes having a time bound, like being specific, kind of like a measurable goal. And before you even feel it, say, I sense I'm going to be overwhelmed by the end of this. This is going to be a crazy week, you know? And I know a lot of us have shared. I don't know if Nick wanted to share one more piece before we close. Like, did you have any idea of how to manage something like this?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in your exact position, Jalan. Like I'm the youngest of 8, and it felt like everybody else got to do what they wanted, but then when it came to, responsibilities, picking up around the house, it all fell on me, because everybody else already, they earned the right to slack off in a sense, And so what I would say is something like, I feel maybe like I'm being taken advantage of when nobody else is helping, just because, um, you know, you guys think that I deserve to be the one who's left with these responsibilities. And that might sound negative, but really, in my opinion, that's being assertive and that's being direct. And I think that that's also something that's important, is remembering that even though, you know, we care about other people's feelings, we're not in charge or in control of other people's feelings. What's important at the end of the day is being able to communicate our feelings. So in this instance, even though it might sting a little bit, it's being honest, it's being direct, like, hey, I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, whenever things aren't being, like distributed, like the chores aren't being done collectively around the house. And so, like, I'm just putting that out there. And I think that's what Brett was kind of trying to say, is just being direct, being assertive, maybe not necessarily handling it with, anger or aggression, but more so just like straightforward,
Yeah. I guess that's the assertive part.
And Jalan, now that you've heard all these different perspectives, is there one that maybe feels more available for you, or that changes how you're going to respond this next week?
Well, yeah, I think, I do need to be a little bit more assertive and, kind of put my people pleasing ways behind me. And, I do need to care less what people think about me. I think that that's where it stems from. I need to care less, what people will think about me when it compromises how I feel about myself.
That's a good one.
Well, I'm looking at the clock and I'm aware that we want to start on time and finish on time. So I just want to thank you all for participating, and thank you, Nick, for being so organized. This was really straightforward. And before we log off, your homework for next week is to start applying some of these skills and choose one emotional skill that you're going to use this next week, one cognitive skill, and one behavioral skill. And then next week, when we reconvene, I'd like us to talk about whether it worked or it didn't. And the ones that worked, we can share. And then the ones that didn't work, we can try to sort that out again. So again, we're constantly fine tuning. So this can be a long-term sobriety lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. I don't know if Nick, you wanted to say anything?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you
Thank you.
for having us.
Great session. Thank you.
Thanks. Are we done? Good
I can
job.
breathe. Thanks.
Good job.